November 3rd, 1679. Mireya Yoshiwara. Blood. Ah, such crimson blood staining the morning light. I wake from another nightmare, my heart pounding like the taiko drums at festival time. The same dream haunts me, him, bound to that accursed post at Suzugamori, and I cannot reach him, no matter how desperately I run through the endless corridors of this floating world. The autumn wind whispers through the latticed windows of Mireya, carrying with it the scent of dying chrysanthemums. How fitting, for even flowers must surrender to time's relentless march. Yet in my dreams he remains eternal, my beloved stranger whose name I have yet to learn. September 15th, 1675. Yoshiwara Nakanocho. 4 years have passed since that fateful evening when destiny first brushed against my silk sleeves. I remember it now with the clarity of crystal, the way the lanterns cast dancing shadows upon the cobblestones, how the autumn moon hung like a pearl in the dark velvet sky. He was just another face in the crowd, or so I thought. A young samurai, perhaps 20 years of age, with eyes that held depths I had never seen before. Not the hungry gaze of most men who frequent our quarter, but something different. Pain, perhaps? Or was it longing? I was making my oiran dochu that evening, my kamuro kikuno and hanao trailing behind me with their tiny bells chiming in perfect rhythm. My elaborate kimono, the one with the golden cranes embroidered upon midnight blue silk, swept across the wooden walkway as I performed the traditional dance of the 8-character walk. And there he stood, pressed against the crowd like a shadow seeking light. Our eyes met for but a moment. Yet in that instant, something within my carefully guarded heart stirred to life. How foolish I was to think myself immune to such feelings, a taiyu of my standing, falling prey to a single glance from a stranger. May 8, 1672. My private chambers, Mireya. Mother's precious comb, the only treasure I carry from my former life. Its teeth are made of the finest tortoise shell, inlaid with tiny golden butterflies that catch the lamplight and seem to flutter with each movement of my head. She gave it to me on my 13th birthday, when the cherry blossoms were in full bloom and the world still held such innocent promise. Komurasaki, she whispered, using the pet name she had chosen for me. May you always find beauty in this harsh world, even when sorrow clouds your vision. How prophetic her words proved to be. The merchants came 3 days later. Father's debts had grown beyond our family's means. Poor harvests, failed business ventures, and mother's prolonged illness had drained our coffers dry. I was but 15, old enough to understand the weight of duty, yet young enough to still believe in miracles. It is only for 10 years, Father assured me, his voice breaking like autumn leaves beneath foot. You are beautiful and intelligent, my daughter. You will survive this. But surviving and living, how different those two states can be. The journey to Edo took 7 days. I clutched mother's comb throughout the entire trip, as if it were a talisman that could transport me back to those simpler times when my greatest worry was which poem to recite at the village festival. June 12, 1672. First days at Mireya. The rules of this gilded prison are as numerous as they are unforgiving. Rise before dawn to tend to the senior courtesans. Practice calligraphy until my fingers ache and my back screams in protest. Study the classics, poetry, music, the art of conversation that can entrance a man without revealing one's true thoughts. Mistress Takeko, the Okami-san of Mireya, surveys us newcomers with eyes as sharp as winter frost. You are no longer farmers' daughters or merchants' children, she declares, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. You are investments in beauty, grace, and refinement. Those who disappoint will find themselves sold to lesser establishments. My kimono today is simple cotton, a far cry from the silk and brocades that await those who prove their worth. Yet even in these humble garments, I feel the weight of transformation beginning. Each lesson in deportment, Each hour spent perfecting the shamisen chips away at the girl I once was. The loneliness is perhaps the cruelest teacher of all. Surrounded by dozens of women, yet feeling more isolated than I ever did in our rural village. We are competitors, not companions, each vying for the favor that might elevate us from the ranks of common prostitutes to the exalted status of Taiyu. March 20th, 1674. My first cherry blossom season as Taiyu. The cherry blossoms bloom with particular splendor this year, their pale pink petals drifting through the quarter like nature's own confetti. I have finally achieved what so few ever do, the rank of Taiyu, the highest echelon of our floating world. Yet with this honor comes a prison of a different sort. My daily routine has become as rigid as the seasons themselves. I wake at the hour of the rabbit, when the morning mist still clings to the rooftops of Yoshiwara. First, the ritual of preparation. The long process of painting my face white as fresh snow, outlining my lips in crimson, blackening my teeth in the fashion that speaks of refinement and status. The weight of my elaborate kimono, today it is the one with silver waves and golden fishing nets, requires assistance from two of my komuro just to walk properly. Each step must be measured, each gesture deliberate. I am no longer merely Komurasaki. I am a living work of art, a symbol of all that is beautiful and unattainable in this world. Yet beneath this carefully crafted exterior, my heart yearns for something more than the practiced compliments of wealthy merchants and the empty flattery of daimyo's sons. In this world of illusion, where truth is as rare as snow in summer, I find myself dreaming of authenticity, of a love that exists beyond the boundaries of commerce and transaction. August 7th, 1675. The night of the Tanabata festival. Tonight the stars align for the celestial lovers Orihime and Hikoboshi, and all of Yoshiwara buzzes with romantic energy. Guests arrive in unprecedented numbers, each hoping perhaps to find their own star-crossed love among the lantern-lit streets of our quarter. I received my first letter today, not from a potential patron, but from someone who signs himself only as a shadow in the crowd. The calligraphy is exquisite, the paper of finest quality, yet the words speak not of desire for my body, but admiration for my spirit. Honorable Komurasaki, it begins. I have observed you from afar these many months, and am struck not merely by your renowned beauty, but by something deeper, a sadness that mirrors my own, a longing that transcends the boundaries of this floating world. If I may be so bold, I believe we are kindred spirits, trapped in circumstances neither of us chose. My hands trembled as I read those words. In this place where every emotion is calculated, every response rehearsed, here was someone speaking directly to the woman beneath the makeup, the human heart beating within this ornate cage. I spent the entire evening wondering who among my admirers might possess such perception, such gentle honesty. Was it the young merchant who always requests my presence but speaks little? The scholarly ronin who quotes poetry with such melancholy? Or perhaps, could it be the mysterious samurai I glimpsed that autumn evening, whose eyes seemed to see through all pretense? August 10, 1675. A correspondence begins. 3 more letters have arrived, each more beautiful than the last. My mysterious correspondent writes of autumn leaves and winter snow, of childhood memories and dreams deferred. He speaks of honor compromised, and paths chosen out of desperation rather than desire. I find myself eagerly awaiting each missive, reading them by candlelight long after the last guest has departed, and the quarter has settled into its brief respite from revelry. His words awaken something within me that I had thought lost forever. Hope. Tonight, I dared to respond. Using my finest brush and most precious paper, I composed a letter that revealed perhaps more of my true self than wisdom would dictate. To my unknown friend, I wrote, "Your letters have become like morning sunlight breaking through storm clouds. In this world where words are weapons and emotions currency, your honesty shines like a beacon." I told him of my mother's comb, of the cherry tree outside our village home, of the way the mountain mist used to dance at dawn. things I have never shared with any guest, secrets I thought buried forever beneath layers of white powder and silk. As I sealed the letter with my personal seal, the purple wisteria that gave me my professional name, I whispered a prayer to the star-crossed lovers above. Perhaps they might smile upon two earthbound souls, seeking connection in this maze of illusion and artifice. September 22nd, 1675. First glimpse of truth. The autumn moon hangs full and bright tonight, casting silver shadows across the wooden walkways of Yoshiwara. It was on such a night that my mysterious correspondent finally revealed himself, and my heart both soared and shattered in the same moment. He came to me through the proper channels, engaging the services of a respectable tea house, paying the astronomical fees required for an evening with a taiyu of my rank. Yet when he was ushered into my presence, I recognized him immediately. Those eyes, those deep, troubled eyes that had haunted my dreams for months. "Gonpachi Hirai," he said, bowing with perfect samurai courtesy. The name fell from his lips like a stone dropping into still water, sending ripples of recognition through my carefully composed demeanor. This was my letter writer, my unknown friend, and something more. The evening unfolded like a flower blooming in slow motion. We spoke of poetry and philosophy, of the changing seasons and the transient nature of beauty. His conversation was as refined as any court noble's, yet beneath the cultured exterior, I sensed a darkness that called to my own hidden sorrows. When the time came for the traditional retirement to my private chambers, something unprecedented occurred. Instead of the mechanical coupling expected in such arrangements, we simply talked. He sat respectfully across from me, and we spoke until dawn broke over the quarter. "I am not what I appear to be," he confessed, as the first light crept through my shoji screens. "The path that brought me to your door is stained with choices that haunt my every waking moment." I reached across the space between us and touched his hand, a gesture forbidden by every rule of my profession, yet as natural as breathing. "Nor am I what I appear to be," I whispered. "Perhaps that is why we understand each other so well." October 15th, 1675. Forbidden feelings bloom. Like autumn leaves turning brilliant shades before their inevitable fall, my feelings for Gonpachi have transformed from the simple companionship of shared loneliness into something far more dangerous and far more beautiful. He comes to me now with increasing frequency, always through proper channels, always paying the exorbitant fees that maintain the illusion of business transaction. Yet what passes between us has moved far beyond the realm of commerce into territory that terrifies and exhilarates me in equal measure. We have created our own private language of glances and subtle gestures. When he quotes a particular poem, I know he is speaking of his longing. When I adjust the placement of a particular hairpin, he understands it as my response to his unspoken words. The other courtesans have begun to notice. Whispered conversations cease when I approach. Glances are exchanged when Gonpachi's name appears on the appointment books with such regularity. In this world where emotional attachment is the most dangerous luxury, I am walking a precipice that grows narrower with each passing day. Yet I cannot bring myself to care about the risks. For the first time since my arrival in this floating world, I feel truly alive. When Gonpachi looks at me, he sees not the famous taiyu Komurasaki, but the village girl who once climbed cherry trees and collected fallen stars in the hem of her kimono. November 8th, 1675. The first confession. Tonight, as the first winter snow began to dust the rooftops of Yoshiwara, Gonpachi spoke the words that changed everything between us, and sealed both our fates in ways neither of us could foresee. We were sharing tea in my private chamber, the brazier casting warm shadows on the walls adorned with paintings of the four seasons. He had been unusually quiet, his normally eloquent conversation reduced to monosyllabic responses and prolonged silences. "Komurasaki," he said suddenly, setting down his cup with hands that trembled almost imperceptibly. "I must speak words that may destroy the peace we have found together, yet I can no longer carry them in silence." My heart began to race, though I maintained the serene composure that years of training had made second nature. "Speak freely, Gonpachi-san. Between us, at least, let there be no pretense." He rose and walked to the window, his silhouette framed against the falling snow like a figure in a melancholy painting. "I love you," he said simply, his words cutting through the winter air like a blade through silk. Not as a patron loves his favored courtesan, but as a man loves the woman who has become the very breath in his lungs. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. I felt the weight of my entire world shifting on its axis, the carefully constructed barriers around my heart crumbling like sandcastles before an incoming tide. "And I whispered, my voice barely audible above the whisper of snow against the windows. "I love you with every fiber of my being, with every beat of my trapped heart. You are my sunrise in this eternal twilight, my hope in this world without tomorrow." We stood frozen in that moment of truth, two souls who had found each other across an impossible divide, yet bound by circumstances that made our love both the most beautiful and most tragic thing either of us had ever experienced. December 20th, 1675. His eyes, burning with secrets. There are moments when I catch Gonpachi staring into the distance, his eyes holding a darkness that sends ice through my veins. Tonight was such a moment, and I finally gathered the courage to venture into the shadows of his past. We were walking through the private garden behind Mirai, the winter moon casting silver patterns on the snow-covered stones. The night was so quiet I could hear the whisper of our breath and the soft crunch of our footsteps on the frozen path. "Gonpachi," I said softly, "why do your eyes sometimes burn with such terrible clarity? What ghosts walk with you in the darkness?" He stopped walking and turned to face me, and in that moment I saw not the refined gentleman who had won my heart, but something wilder, more dangerous, and infinitely more tragic. "You ask me to bear wounds that have never properly healed," he said, his voice carrying the weight of unspeakable regret. "I fear that if you knew the full truth of what I am, what I have become, you would no longer look upon me with such tenderness." I reached for his hands, clasping them between my own despite the bitter cold. "Whatever darkness lives in your past, it cannot extinguish the light I see in your soul. Tell me, beloved, let me share your burden." His confession came in fragments, like pieces of a shattered mirror reflecting distorted images of pain and desperation. The death of his father's colleague, the flight from his home domain, the struggle to survive in Edo's unforgiving streets, and finally, the terrible choices that necessity had forced upon him. "I have taken lives, Komurasaki," he whispered, his voice breaking like a child's. "Not in honorable combat, but in the darkness of night, for the coins in their purses. I have become what I once despised, a common criminal who preys upon the innocent." The revelation should have filled me with horror, should have sent me fleeing from his presence. Instead, I felt only an overwhelming wave of compassion for this tortured soul who had been driven to such extremes by love. Love for me. January 15th, 1676. Living with forbidden knowledge. The knowledge of Gonpachi's crimes weighs upon my heart like stones in a river, yet I find I cannot condemn him for choices born of desperation and devotion. In this floating world where survival often demands the sacrifice of honor, who among us can claim pure innocence? Each day brings fresh anxiety as I watch him struggle with his conscience. The money he brings to secure our meetings is paid for in blood, yet without it, we would have no time together at all. We are trapped in a web of impossible circumstances, each thread leading only to greater entanglement. I have begun to notice changes in the way others regard us. Whispered conversations between the house servants. Meaningful glances exchanged when they think I am not watching. The secret of our true relationship may be becoming less secret with each passing day. Yet in our private moments, when the world falls away and we exist only for each other, I glimpse a paradise that makes all earthly concerns seem insignificant. When Gonpachi holds me, I am no longer the famous courtesan Komurasaki, but simply a woman who loves and is loved in return. We speak often of escape, wild dreams of fleeing Edo together, finding refuge in some distant province where we might live as husband and wife. But we both know these are fantasies, beautiful illusions that provide temporary comfort but can never become reality. March 3rd, 1676. The Festival of Dolls and Distant Hopes. Today is Hinamatsuri, the festival celebrating girls and their future happiness. How bitterly ironic that I should contemplate my own impossible future on such a day. The elaborate dolls displayed throughout Yoshiwara remind me of my own existence. Beautiful, perfectly dressed, yet ultimately lifeless. Gonpachi brought me a gift today, hidden beneath his kimono and passed to me during our formal tea ceremony. A small doll, carved from cherry wood and wearing a simple cotton kimono. It bears no resemblance to the elegant figures that adorn the festival displays, yet it is the most precious thing I have ever received. I carved it myself, he confessed, working by candlelight in the hours when sleep refuses to come. See how she wears no paint upon her face? I wanted to capture your true beauty, not the mask you wear for the world. I held the little figure to my heart, feeling tears threaten to destroy the careful makeup that had taken an hour to apply. In this world of expensive gifts and lavish displays of wealth, this simple wooden doll represented something infinitely more valuable. Love given freely, without expectation of return. She will remind me, I whispered, that beneath all the elaborate costumes and practiced performances, there remains a woman capable of being loved for who she truly is. June 18th, 1676, whispers of let us flee. The summer heat bears down upon Yoshiwara like a heavy quilt, and with it comes a restlessness that infected both Gonpachi and myself. It was on such a night that he spoke the words that offered both salvation and damnation. Come away with me, he said urgently, grasping my hands as we sat in my chamber watching the paper lanterns sway in the humid breeze. I have gold enough to buy your freedom and secure passage to the western provinces. We could disappear into the mountains of Ekizen, live as simple farmers, forget that this world of artifice ever existed. My heart leaped at the possibility, even as my mind catalogued the impossibilities. The debt I owe to Mirai is beyond counting, I protested. 10 years of my earnings would not suffice to buy my freedom. And you? How can you speak of leaving when the authorities grow ever closer to discovering your activities? His grip tightened, and I saw desperation burning in his eyes like fever. Then we will run without permission. Once we are far from Edo, what power can they have over us? I would rather live 1 year as your true husband, than spend eternity as your secret lover. The proposal terrified and tempted me in equal measure. To flee would mean abandoning everything I had worked to achieve, casting aside the status and security that my years of training had earned. Yet to remain meant continuing this elaborate charade, pretending my heart did not belong entirely to the man before me. Give me time to consider, I begged. Such a decision cannot be made in haste. Too many lives would be affected by our choice. But even as I spoke the words, I knew that my heart had already decided. The only question remaining was whether I possessed the courage to follow where love demanded I go. July 30th, 1676. Allies in the shadows. Even in this den of competing interests and carefully guarded secrets, love has found us unexpected allies. Kikuno, my youngest Kamuro, approached me today with intelligence that both touched and terrified me. Komurasaki-sama, she whispered as she helped me dress my hair. I know about your samurai. I have seen the way you look at each other when you think no one is watching. My blood turned to ice water. If a child had noticed our connection, how many others had observed what we thought was perfect discretion? But Kikuno continued in her sweet conspiratorial voice. My own mother was sold to pay debts, just as you were. I understand what it means to find love in this place where it is forbidden. If you ever need assistance, if you ever need someone to carry messages, or watch for approaching danger, I will help you. Tears sprang to my eyes as I realized that this child, barely 12 years old, had recognized something pure in our relationship, despite its tragic context. Through her, I learned that several of the younger servants had formed a protective circle around our secret, warning each other when suspicious guests or officials might be watching too closely. Even among the other courtesans, there were those who had noticed our attachment and chosen to look away rather than report it to the house management. Perhaps in our love they saw reflections of their own lost dreams, their own abandoned hopes for authentic connection. This network of quiet supporters gave me hope that when the time came for difficult choices, we would not be entirely alone. Yet it also increased the weight of responsibility I felt toward those who risked their own safety to protect our happiness. October 12, 1676. Betrayal and approaching footsteps. The autumn wind carries with it the scent of danger. This morning Mistress Takeko summoned me to her private chamber, her face wearing an expression of grim determination that sent ice through my veins. "Komurasaki," she said without preamble, "I have received disturbing reports about your relationship with the samurai Hirai. You would do well to remember that emotional entanglements beyond the prescribed boundaries of business can bring ruin upon this entire establishment." I maintained my composure through years of practiced discipline, though my heart hammered against my ribs like a caged bird. I assure you, mistress, that my conduct has remained within proper bounds. If my patron shows particular favor toward my services, surely that reflects well upon the training I have received here. Her laugh was as cold as winter rain. Do not insult my intelligence with such transparent denials. I have eyes throughout this quarter, and they report behavior that suggests involvement far beyond that of courtesan and client. The threat hung in the air between us like incense smoke. I knew that if she chose to act upon her suspicions, both Gonpachi and I would face consequences that could destroy us utterly. "However," she continued, "you are valuable property, and I am not eager to lose the income your reputation generates. Conduct yourself with greater discretion, and this conversation need never be repeated, but know that you are being watched." As I left her chamber, I realized that our time was running short. The web of secrecy that had protected us was beginning to unravel, and soon we would face a choice between love and survival. December 8, 1676. Spring rain and farewell promises. The unseasonable rain that falls tonight mirrors the tears I cannot shed in public. Gonpachi came to me this evening with news that changed everything between us, and perhaps sealed both our fates. "They know," he said simply, his face pale as moonlight on fresh snow. "The authorities have connected my identity to the robberies. There are descriptions circulating, witnesses who can place me near recent incidents. It is only a matter of time before they trace the investigation to Yoshiwara." My hands shook as I poured tea, the familiar ritual providing comfort in a moment when my entire world threatened to collapse. "What will you do?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. "I must leave Edo," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of absolute finality. "Perhaps journey to my home province one final time, to see if my parents still live. After that..." He shrugged with a resignation that broke my heart. "I will turn myself in to the authorities. It is the only way to ensure that you are not implicated in my crimes." "No!" The word escaped my lips with such violence that it surprised us both. "I will not let you sacrifice yourself for my sake. If you must flee, then I will come with you. Let them search for 2 fugitives instead of 1. He cupped my face in his hands, his touch infinitely gentle despite the calluses earned through months of violence. "My beloved Komurasaki, you cannot comprehend what such a life would mean. We would be hunted criminals, forced to live in constant fear of discovery. You deserve so much more than such an existence." "I deserve to be with the man I love," I whispered fiercely. "Nothing else matters, not comfort, not safety, not the opinions of a world that sees us only as property to be bought and sold." We spent the night planning our escape, creating elaborate schemes for leaving Edo together, yet even as we spoke of new lives and fresh beginnings, we both sensed that fate had already written a different ending to our story. January 20th, 1677. Life is a hunted man's love. Gonpachi has become like morning mist. present one moment, vanished the next. His visits to Miura have grown irregular and brief, constrained by the ever-tightening net of pursuit that threatens to ensnare us both. When he does manage to come to me, I see the toll that constant vigilance has taken upon his spirit. His eyes dart to every shadow, his hand instinctively moves toward his sword at the slightest unexpected sound. The gentle scholar, who once quoted poetry with such eloquence, has been transformed into a hunted animal, beautiful, but wounded. "I dream of you every night," he confessed during his last visit. "But even in sleep, I find no peace. I see your face behind prison bars, hear your voice calling my name, as they drag me to the execution ground. These visions torture me more than any physical pain ever could. I have taken to wearing mother's precious comb every day now, as if its weight in my hair could anchor me to happier memories when the present becomes too painful to bear. The golden butterflies catch the light as I move, reminding me that even the most delicate creatures can find a way to fly. Yet isolation breeds its own form of madness. I find myself staring at every guest who enters Miura, wondering if this stranger might be the magistrate's spy who will finally connect Gonpachi's identity to my own. Every knock at my chamber door sends my heart racing with equal measures of hope and terror. March 15th, 1677. Secrets and silent screams. The weight of our forbidden love has become almost unbearable. I move through my daily routines like a ghost inhabiting its own body, serving tea with perfect grace, while my mind churns with worry, performing the elegant dances of my profession while my heart breaks a little more with each passing hour. Today brought news that filled me with both relief and renewed anxiety. One of Kikuno's whispered reports revealed that the authorities have been questioning merchants and innkeepers throughout Edo, seeking information about a mysterious samurai matching Gonpachi's description. Yet their inquiries seem focused on his criminal activities rather than his association with anyone in Yoshiwara. "Perhaps," Kikuno suggested with the innocent optimism of youth, "they do not know about his visits here. Perhaps your secret remains safe." But I know better than to find comfort in such hopes. In this floating world where information is currency and betrayal often comes wrapped in silk, secrets have a way of revealing themselves at the most dangerous moments. Still, I guard the truth of our relationship like a sacred flame, never speaking his name aloud except in the privacy of my own chamber, never allowing my expression to change when other guests mention rumors of the notorious highway robber who has been terrorizing the roads around Edo. If I could scream, if I could release the tension that builds within me like steam in a covered pot, perhaps I might find some relief. But Atayu must never lose her composure, never reveal the depth of her inner turmoil. So I smile and pour tea and recite poetry while my soul cries out in anguish. June 2nd, 1677. Mother's comb and memories of warmth. Tonight I sit alone in my chamber, brushing my hair with mother's precious comb while the summer rain patters against my window like restless spirits. Each stroke brings back memories of simpler times, when love was innocent and the future held only promise. I remember the morning when mother first placed this comb in my hair, how carefully she arranged each strand while humming an old folk song about cherry blossoms and eternal spring. "Beautiful things require patience, my little Komurasaki," she told me. "True beauty comes not from haste, but from taking time to appreciate each precious moment." How differently I understand those words now. In my current existence, every moment with Gonpachi has become infinitely precious precisely because we know how few of them we may have left. Each stolen glance, each whispered endearment, each gentle touch carries the weight of eternity. The golden butterflies embedded in the comb's teeth seem to flutter in the lamplight, as if they too long for freedom from their beautiful prison. Like them, I am trapped within something lovely yet constraining, valued for my appearance while my true nature remains hidden from view. When this ordeal ends, however it may end, I pray that these memories of love will sustain me. The warmth of Gonpachi's hand in mine, the sound of his laughter when I surprise him with an unexpected jest, the way his eyes soften when he looks upon me as simply a woman, rather than the famous courtesan Komurasaki. August 25th, 1677. Death arrives with the morning news. The world ended this morning at the hour of the horse, when a merchant's casual gossip shattered my heart into 1,000 irreparable pieces. "Did you hear?" he said to his companion as they waited in Muraya's reception hall. "They finally captured that highway robber, the one they call the Phantom of the Eastern Road. Turned himself in, can you believe it? Walked right into the magistrate's office and confessed to everything." I was serving tea when these words reached my ears, and only years of rigorous training prevented me from dropping the precious porcelain cups that suddenly felt as heavy as mountain stones. My hands continued their practiced motions, while my mind reeled with the implications of what I had just heard. "They say he'll be executed at Suzugamori before the month ends," the merchant continued, with the casual interest of one discussing the weather. "Probably crucifixion, given the number of people he killed. Makes you think twice about traveling alone after dark, doesn't it?" I excused myself with perfect politeness and walked with measured steps to my private chamber, where I finally allowed the mask of composure to slip from my face. The wail that escaped my lips was barely human, the sound of a soul being torn in half. Gonpachi had kept his word. Rather than drag me down with him, he had chosen to face his fate alone. But in saving me, he had condemned us both to a different kind of death. His physical, mine spiritual. I pressed Mother's comb against my heart and whispered his name over and over, as if repetition could somehow summon him back to my side. But I knew with terrible certainty that I would never see those gentle eyes again, never feel those strong arms around me, never hear his voice speaking my name with such tender reverence. September 10th, 1677. Pleading at prison gates. For the past fortnight, I have abandoned all pretense of maintaining my professional duties. Each morning I slip from Muraya disguised as a common servant and make my way to the prison compound, where Gonpachi awaits his execution. The guards know me now, this persistent woman who appears at their gates with offerings of food and small bribes, begging for just one glimpse of the condemned prisoner. They regard me with mixture of pity and annoyance, occasionally accepting my coins while steadfastly refusing my requests. "He's dangerous," they always say. "No visitors allowed except for officials and clergy. Besides, what business could a woman like you have with a murderer?" If only they knew that this murderer is the gentlest soul I have ever encountered, a man driven to violence by circumstances beyond his control, who quotes poetry and carves wooden dolls and looks upon the world with eyes full of regret rather than malice. I have written letter after letter to the magistrate, pleading for permission to visit, offering substantial sums from my own savings for just one final conversation. All have gone unanswered. It seems that even in this corrupt world where money can purchase almost anything, some barriers cannot be breached. Today I knelt in the dirt outside the prison walls for 6 hours, pressing my forehead to the ground and whispering prayers to any deity who might be listening. I begged them to let Gonpachi feel my love across the distance that separates us, to give him strength for the ordeal he must soon face. As evening approached and I finally forced myself to leave, I looked back at those forbidding walls and made a silent promise. If I cannot save his life, I will at least ensure that his death does not pass unwitnessed by one who truly loved him. September 22nd, 1677. Living in a cage of my own making. I exist now in a state of walking death, performing the motions of life while feeling nothing but hollow emptiness where my heart once resided. The other courtesans whisper about my changed demeanor, how the famous Komurasaki has become as pale and distant as moonlight on water. Mistress Takeko summoned me again yesterday, her expression even more severe than before. "Your recent behavior has become a matter of concern," she said coldly. "Guests complain that you seem distracted, that your usual charm has been replaced by melancholy. This is bad for business." I bowed appropriately and murmured apologies, promising to return to my former standards of service. But the words felt like ashes in my mouth. How can I pretend enthusiasm for empty pleasantries when the man I love sits in a cell awaiting death? The irony is not lost on me that in this moment of deepest personal anguish, I am finally experiencing something real and true. For years I have performed emotions for the entertainment of others, but this grief is entirely my own, raw, authentic, and devastating. I spend my evenings staring at the wooden doll Gonpachi carved for me, tracing its simple features with my fingertip while remembering the hands that shaped it. Sometimes I imagine I can feel his presence in the room with me, watching over me with those eyes that saw through all pretense to the woman beneath. The other women in Mirai have begun to treat me with the kind of careful deference usually reserved for the dangerously mad. Perhaps they are not wrong. Perhaps love, when it burns with such intensity, is indeed a form of madness. October 18th, 1677. His final gift to the world. News of the execution reached Yoshiwara before the sun had fully risen, carried by the morning vendors who spread information along with their wares through the winding streets of our quarter. They say he faced death with the dignity of a true samurai, showing no fear as they bound him to the cross at Suzugamori. The assembled crowd expected defiance or pleas for mercy, but instead received something far more unexpected, a song. Yezakura ga saita kedo, iya ye mumega, eda wo te refurishite. The melody drifted across the execution ground like cherry blossoms on spring wind. It was Yagume, the song we had composed together during our stolen hours, weaving verses about plum blossoms and eternal love. The crowd fell silent as his voice rose clear and true, transforming that place of death into something sacred. Even the executioners paused in their preparations, struck by the beauty of his final performance. When the song ended, he spoke my name, not the professional name Komurasaki that all the world knew, but the pet name from my childhood that only he had discovered. For you, my beloved little purple flower, he called across the morning air. Until we meet again, in the next world. I was not there to hear those words with my own ears, but they reached me nonetheless, carried on the wind of love that connects two souls across any distance. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, I felt his spirit brush against mine one final time before departing for whatever realm awaits the faithful dead. They say that when the end came, he died with a smile upon his lips, as if he had seen something beautiful waiting for him beyond the veil of mortality. Perhaps he had. Perhaps love is strong enough to illuminate even the darkest passages. October 19th, 1677. The weight of truth and final choices. The full story reached my ears through Kikuno's careful intelligence gathering, and with it came the crushing weight of responsibility that I am only now beginning to understand. All those months of violence, all those innocent lives lost to his desperate blade. They had been sacrifices offered on the altar of his love for me. Every coin taken from a murdered traveler had been destined for Mirai's coffers. Payment for precious hours in my company. He kept detailed records, Kikuno whispered as she helped me dress my hair with trembling fingers. The magistrates found them in his hiding place. Every theft was carefully noted, along with the amount needed for his next visit to you. They say he never spent a single mon on himself. It all went toward purchasing time with his beloved courtesan. The revelation should have filled me with horror at my unwitting complicity in such crimes. Instead, I felt only overwhelming grief for a love so pure that it had driven a fundamentally good man to such desperate extremes. I understand now why he chose to surrender himself rather than flee. He had recognized that our love, beautiful though it was, had become a poison that corrupted everything it touched. By ending his own life, he hoped to stop the spread of that contamination. But some poisons are too deeply embedded to be removed by a single sacrifice. His death has only transferred the burden of guilt to my shoulders, where it sits like lead weights that grow heavier with each passing hour. Tonight, as I prepare for what may be my final entry in this journal of forbidden love, I find myself facing a choice that no longer seems like a choice at all. The path forward has become as clear as the autumn moon that shines through my window. November 1st, 1677. Plans laid in shadows. All Souls' Day seems fitting for the plans that have taken shape in my mind, like morning mist condensing into rain. While the living world celebrates another autumn festival, I find myself drawn inexorably toward reunion with the dead. Through careful inquiry, I have learned the location where Gonpachi's remains were laid to rest. The small temple of Toshoji, near the Meguro Fudo-son, has become his final earthly home. The monk there speaks of a simple grave, marked only with a plain wooden marker, as befits a criminal who died without family to claim his body. Yet this criminal was more noble in his degradation than most men are in their finest hours. His love was pure, even when his actions were corrupted by necessity. His heart remained tender, even when his hands were stained with blood. I have begun to make arrangements with the subtle cunning that years in Yoshiwara have taught me. A special kimono has been commissioned. The one with the pattern of cranes and plum blossoms that Gonpachi once said reminded him of hopes for spring. Beneath its silk I will carry the small wooden doll he carved for me, along with mother's precious comb. The irony is not lost on me that I must employ the same skills of deception and misdirection that have served me as a courtesan to arrange what will be my final performance. But this time, the audience will be an audience of one, the spirit of the man I love, waiting for me beyond the boundaries of this floating world. Kikuno has agreed to help, though I have not told her the full extent of my intentions. Her young heart still believes in the possibility of happiness, and I would not burden her with knowledge that might later bring her pain. November 15th, 1677. A marriage proposal from another world. Fate, it seems, has a sense of cruel timing. This morning brought news that should have filled any woman's heart with joy, but instead feels like another nail in the coffin of my earthly existence. A wealthy merchant from Osaka has made an offer to purchase my freedom and take me as his wife. The sum mentioned is astronomical, enough to clear my debts to Muraya and still leave a substantial dowry. Mistress Takeko presented the proposal with barely concealed excitement. "This is the opportunity you have been working toward your entire career," she declared, her eyes gleaming with calculations of profit and prestige. Komurasaki, the famous Taiyu, elevated to respectable marriage with a man of substance. It will be the talk of all three cities. I listened to her enthusiastic description of my proposed new life, with the detached interest one might show toward news from a distant country. A comfortable house in Osaka's merchant quarter. Servants to attend my needs. Freedom to pursue poetry and painting as the hobbies of a prosperous wife. "The formal meeting is arranged for tomorrow evening," Mistress Takeko continued. "Prepare yourself carefully. This man could be your salvation from this floating world." Salvation. The word echoes in my mind with bitter irony. If I truly sought salvation, I suppose I would embrace this chance to begin anew, to leave behind the sorrow that has consumed me since Gonpachi's death. A different woman might see in this proposal the hand of benevolent destiny. But I am no longer that woman. The girl who might have found happiness as a merchant's wife died on a cross at Suzugamori, alongside the man who loved her beyond reason. What remains is only an echo, a shadow that grows fainter with each passing day. Still, I will play the role expected of me one final time. I will dress in my finest robes and receive this honorable proposal with appropriate grace. Let my last performance be one worthy of the reputation I have built over these years. November 16th, 1677. The final performance. The meeting with my potential husband-to-be unfolded like a scene from one of the romantic tales I once enjoyed reading. He is perhaps 40 years of age, well-groomed and prosperous, with kind eyes and a gentle manner that suggests he would treat a wife with consideration and respect. We spoke of inconsequential matters, the beauty of autumn leaves, the quality of this year's poetry collections, his hopes for expanding his business ventures into new territories. He listened to my responses with genuine interest, occasionally offering comments that revealed both intelligence and sensitivity. "I have heard much of your accomplishments, Komurasaki-san," he said, as the evening drew toward its close. "Your reputation for grace and learning precedes you even to distant Osaka. I would be honored to provide you with a home where such talents could flourish without the constraints of your current circumstances. His proposal was everything a woman in my position could hope for: respectful, generous, offering genuine affection if not passionate love. He spoke of children we might have together, of the literary salon I could host in our home, of trips to the capital to view the famous gardens and temples. I found myself genuinely touched by his sincere desire to offer me a better life. In another world, at another time, I might have grown to love this good man who sees value in a former courtesan, when others would show only disdain. When he requested permission to call upon me again, I granted it with a smile that was only partially feigned. Let him believe, for a few more days, that his courtship might succeed. Some kindnesses are worth maintaining, even when they serve no ultimate purpose. As he departed with promises to return soon with formal marriage documents, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. This man's genuine goodness has confirmed what I already knew. There are still decent people in this world, still possibilities for happiness and renewal. They simply exist for someone other than myself. December 3rd, 1677. In dreams he calls to me. Sleep has become my only refuge from the waking world, for it is in dreams that Gonpachi visits me most clearly. Last night he appeared more vivid than ever before, standing in a garden of eternal spring where cherry blossoms never fade and plum trees bloom beside snow-covered pines. "My beloved," he said, extending his hand toward me across the distance that separates dream from reality, "how long will you remain in that world of shadows when paradise awaits us here?" I tried to run to him, but my feet were rooted to the ground like ancient trees. "I cannot abandon those who depend upon me," I protested. "Kikuno still needs guidance, and the merchant from Osaka believes in a future that includes my presence." His smile was infinitely gentle, infinitely sad. "You cannot save others by sacrificing your own soul to prolonged suffering. Love is not served by martyrdom, but by the courage to follow one's heart, even when the path leads through darkness." The dream garden began to fade as dawn approached, but his final words echoed with crystalline clarity. "When you are ready to join me, I will be waiting at the place where our earthly love began its transformation into something eternal." I woke with his voice still ringing in my ears, and mother's comb clutched so tightly in my hand that its teeth left indentations in my palm. The message seemed unmistakable. The time for difficult choices has arrived. Yet even as I acknowledge the truth of his words, part of me clings to this world of sorrow with the desperate grip of a drowning woman clinging to driftwood. Is it fear of the unknown that holds me back, or simply the deeply ingrained habit of survival that has carried me through so many trials? December 20th, 1677. Mother's comb and childhood promises. Tonight I hold mother's comb up to the candlelight and watch the golden butterflies seem to dance among its teeth. Each tiny insect appears to strain against its metallic prison, longing for the freedom to spread its wings and soar beyond the boundaries of Earth. I remember the day she gave this treasure to me, how carefully she explained the symbolism embedded in its design. "Butterflies represent transformation, my little one," she said as she worked the ornament into my hair. "They remind us that even the humblest caterpillar can become something beautiful and free." At the time, I thought she was simply encouraging me to believe in my own potential for growth and achievement. Only now do I understand that she was preparing me for a different kind of transformation, the ultimate metamorphosis that awaits all living beings. The merchant from Osaka returned yesterday with formal marriage contracts, and a dowry chest filled with silks so fine they seemed woven from moonbeams. His joy at the prospect of our union was so genuine that I found myself moved to unexpected tenderness. "I have already begun preparations for your new home," he told me excitedly. "The garden has been redesigned according to principles of harmony and beauty. There is a special pavilion where you can write poetry while listening to the song of nightingales." His vision of our life together painted pictures of contentment I could almost believe in, yet beneath his well-intentioned kindness, I sensed that he saw me as a beautiful object to be acquired and displayed. Precious, certainly, but still fundamentally ornamental. When I asked for additional time to consider his generous offer, disappointment flickered across his features before being replaced by understanding patience. Of course, Komurasaki-san, such an important decision should not be made in haste. I will await your answer with confidence in your eventual acceptance. As he departed once again, I touched the golden butterflies in my hair and whispered mother's words. May you always find beauty in this harsh world, even when sorrow clouds your vision. I have found that beauty, and its name was Gonpachi. Perhaps that is enough for one lifetime. January 10th, 1678. The weight of accumulated sorrows. The New Year celebrations that swept through Yoshiwara felt like mockery of my internal desolation. Everywhere I looked, I saw fresh hopes and renewed promises. Couples toasting to their future happiness while I counted down the days until my own carefully planned conclusion. Yet amidst the revelry I found unexpected moments of grace. Kikuno approached me during the height of the festivities, her young face bright with excitement about the year ahead. Komurasaki-sama, she whispered conspiratorially. I have saved enough money to buy my freedom in just 2 more years. And when I do, I want to open a small tea shop where former courtesans can find honest work and respectable lives. Her innocent optimism pierced my heart like a sword thrust. Here was proof that redemption was possible, that the cycle of exploitation could be broken by those with sufficient courage and determination. She represented everything I had once hoped to become: survivor, redeemer, woman transformed. That is a beautiful dream, I told her honestly. Never let anyone convince you to abandon such noble aspirations. But even as I spoke those encouraging words, I knew that my own path led in a different direction. Some people are destined to build bridges toward better futures. Others are called to bear witness to the price of love in a world that commodifies every human feeling. The merchant's marriage proposal remains unanswered, though his messengers arrive with increasing frequency bearing gifts and gentle inquiries about my decision. Each delivery feels like another link in a chain that threatens to bind me to an existence I no longer have the strength to embrace. February 14th, 1678. Letters to Eternity. On this day dedicated to love in all its forms, I have begun composing the letters that will serve as my final gifts to those I leave behind. Each word is chosen with the care of a poet crafting verses for the ages, for these messages must carry the weight of everything I cannot say in person. To Kikuno I write of dreams and determination. Never allow this floating world to convince you that your worth lies only in others' desires. You possess a strength that will carry you far beyond these walls into a life of your own choosing. To Mistress Takeko, I offer gratitude tempered with gentle reproach. You taught me the skills necessary for survival in an unforgiving world, and for that I am grateful. Yet I hope that someday you will remember that those in your care are human beings deserving of compassion, not merely assets to be managed. To the merchant from Osaka, I express sincere appreciation for his kindness, while firmly closing the door on possibilities I cannot embrace. Your generous heart deserves a wife who can love you with the fullness of her being. Seek such a woman, and you will find happiness far greater than any I could provide. And finally, to my beloved Gonpachi, I write the words that my heart has been composing since the moment of his death. My darling, I come to you not in defeat but in triumph, choosing love over survival, authenticity over pretense. Wait for me at the bridge between worlds, for I shall be with you soon. Each letter is sealed with my personal mark and placed in a lacquered box, along with mother's comb and the small wooden doll that represents everything pure and hopeful in my memories. These tokens will serve as my legacy, proof that even in this world of shadows and illusion, true love can take root and flourish. March 8, 1678. Cherry blossoms and farewell seasons. The cherry blossoms have begun their annual miracle, transforming the trees of Edo into clouds of pink and white that seem to float against the spring sky. This will be my last viewing of their ephemeral beauty, and I find myself memorizing every detail, with the intensity of one trying to capture eternity in a single moment. Yoshiwara traditionally celebrates the blooming season with elaborate parties and poetry competitions, events where courtesans display their cultural refinement, while guests enjoy the dual pleasures of natural beauty and feminine company. This year I participate with the detached grace of an actor performing a familiar role. During yesterday's Hanami gathering, I composed what will likely be my final poem. Cherry blossoms fall. Not in sorrow, but in joy. Returning to earth, they nourish the roots of love. That will bloom again next spring. The assembled guests praised these verses for their elegant imagery and philosophical depth, never suspecting that they were listening to a farewell disguised as seasonal observation. Art, I have learned, provides the perfect camouflage for the most intense human emotions. As the evening progressed and sake flowed freely, conversations turned to speculation about my pending marriage to the Osaka merchant. Several guests offered congratulations on my impending escape from the floating world, their tone suggesting they viewed my situation as the ultimate success story. I smiled and accepted their well wishes with appropriate modesty, all the while thinking how little they understood about the true nature of escape. Physical freedom means nothing if one's heart remains imprisoned by grief and guilt. Better to choose the kind of liberation that transcends all earthly boundaries. April 15th, 1678. The final arrangements. Spring reaches its full glory now, and with it comes the completion of plans I have been crafting, with the meticulous care of a master artisan creating her finest work. Every detail has been considered, every contingency anticipated. Through discreet inquiries, I have confirmed the location of Gonpachi's grave and learned the habits of the monks who tend the temple grounds. Early morning, just after the first prayers but before the daily visitors begin to arrive, offers the best opportunity for privacy. The special kimono has been completed, midnight blue silk, with silver cranes and golden plum blossoms, exactly as I described to the seamstress. Beneath its elegance, I will wear the simple white underrobe that symbolizes purity of intention. Mother's comb will hold my hair in the classical style favored by brides, and Gonpachi's wooden doll will rest against my heart. I have liquidated my personal possessions discreetly, converting jewelry and art objects into coin that will serve various purposes. A portion will go to Kikuno to help fund her dream of independence. Another sum will be sent anonymously to the families of some of Gonpachi's victims. Small recompense for losses that can never truly be repaid, but perhaps enough to ease someone's burden. The remainder will purchase the final elements needed for my pilgrimage: incense for the grave, flowers for the offering, and the small tanto that will serve as my key to the next world. The blade was blessed by a sympathetic priest, who asked no questions about its intended use, understanding perhaps that some journeys require such implements. As I write these words, my hands remain perfectly steady. There is peace in certainty, comfort in knowing that the long period of indecision and suffering draws to its close. Like a ship finally sighting harbor after months on stormy seas, I feel my spirit lightening as the destination comes into view. Tomorrow evening marks the anniversary of our first meeting, that autumn night when two lost souls recognized each other across a crowded street. It seems fitting that I should choose the following dawn to complete the circle of our love story. May 20th, 1678. The merchant's final visit. My would-be husband arrived this morning with documents finalized and expectations high, his face glowing with the satisfaction of a man who believes he has successfully won a prize of great value. I received him in my finest receiving room, serving the most expensive tea while maintaining the gracious demeanor he has come to expect. Komurasaki-san, he began with barely contained excitement. I have wonderful news. The magistrate has approved our marriage contract, and I have made arrangements for your formal release from service here. We can depart for Osaka within the week. His joy was so genuine, his plans so carefully thought out, that I felt a genuine pang of regret for the pain my decision would cause him. He spoke enthusiastically of the house he had prepared, the servants he had hired, the social connections that would welcome us as a respected couple. I have even commissioned a portrait artist to create your likeness. He continued, pulling out a small sketch he had obviously treasured. "See how he has captured your ethereal beauty. This will hang in our main hall, so that all who visit will understand the refinement of my household." The drawing was skillfully executed, showing me in formal court dress with an expression of serene dignity. Yet looking at it, I felt as if I were viewing the portrait of a stranger, someone who resembled me physically but possessed none of my inner turmoil and passionate nature. When he requested my formal acceptance of his proposal, I found myself speaking words that surprised us both. "Honored sir, your kindness has touched my heart more deeply than you can know. Yet I must ask for one final delay, just a few more days to complete certain obligations here. A woman of my position cannot simply disappear without properly concluding her affairs." His face showed momentary disappointment, quickly replaced by understanding. "Of course, my dear, I would not want your transition to our new life to be marred by unfinished business. Take whatever time you need. I am prepared to wait for happiness as precious as what we will share together." As he departed with promises to return for my final answer, I whispered a prayer that someday he would find a woman capable of returning his devotion with the wholehearted love he deserved. Some acts of kindness transcend the intentions of those who perform them. August 12, 1678. Memories like pressed flowers. The summer heat presses down upon Yoshiwara like a heavy quilt, and with it comes a strange clarity of vision that makes every memory of Gonpachi shine with crystalline precision. I find myself reliving our time together in perfect detail, as if my mind were a master painter creating illuminated manuscripts of love. I remember the way he held his brush when writing poetry, the slight furrow that appeared between his brows when he concentrated on finding exactly the right character to express his meaning. His handwriting was bold yet graceful, reflecting the contradictions that made him so fascinating. Warrior and scholar, criminal and gentleman, destroyer and creator, all contained within one troubled soul. The sound of his laughter still echoes in my chamber during the quiet hours before dawn. It was not the practiced amusement of a man trying to impress a courtesan, but something spontaneous and musical that seemed to bubble up from genuine joy. How rare such moments were in his difficult life, yet how generously he shared them with me. Even now I can feel the texture of his hands, calloused from swordwork and manual labor, yet capable of infinite gentleness when they touched my face or smoothed my hair. Those same hands that dealt death in dark alleys became instruments of tenderness when we were alone together. The wooden doll he carved for me sits in its place of honor beside my writing desk, its simple features somehow conveying more humanity than the elaborate artworks that decorate Muraya's public rooms. In its modest perfection, I see reflected all the love that circumstances prevented us from expressing openly. These memories have become my most precious possessions, more valuable than silk kimono or golden ornaments. They are the dowry I will carry into whatever realm awaits beyond this floating world. Proof that love can flourish even in the most unlikely soil. October 31st, 1678. All Souls' Eve and approaching decisions. On this night when the boundaries between worlds grow thin, I feel Gonpachi's presence more strongly than ever before. The autumn wind carries whispers that seem to call my name, and shadows dance in corners of my chamber as if spirits were gathering to witness the conclusion of our earthly drama. The merchant from Osaka grows increasingly impatient with my continued delays, though he maintains the polite facade that good breeding demands. His recent letters carry undertones of concern, that perhaps I am having second thoughts about our arrangement. My dearest Komurasaki, his latest missive reads, I begin to worry that I have somehow offended you or failed to demonstrate the depth of my sincere affections. If there is anything troubling you about our impending union, please speak freely, so that I might address your concerns. His consideration only makes my planned deception more painful. This good man deserves a wife who will cherish his kindness rather than a woman whose heart belongs entirely to a dead criminal. Yet I cannot bring myself to crush his hopes prematurely, when doing so would serve no purpose beyond alleviating my own guilt. Instead, I compose careful responses that promise resolution, without specifying its nature. Honored sir, Your patience with my hesitation proves the quality of your character. Be assured that very soon now, all uncertainty will be resolved one way or another. Tonight I performed what may be my final oiran dochu, processing through the streets of Yoshiwara with all the elaborate ceremony that befits a taiyu of my rank. The crowds gathered as always to admire the spectacle, their faces reflecting the eternal fascination with beauty wrapped in silk and artifice. Yet as I moved through that familiar choreography, the measured steps, the precise gestures, the carefully controlled expression of distant allure, I felt as if I were watching the performance from outside my own body. The woman they cheered was already becoming a memory, a character in a story that was rapidly approaching its final chapter. December 15, 1678. Winter's grip and final preparations. Snow has begun to fall on Edo, transforming the familiar landscape into something ethereal and otherworldly. From my window, I watch the white flakes drift past like messages from heaven, each one carrying promises of transformation and renewal. The date has been chosen, the third day of the new year, when most of the city will be occupied with celebratory activities and the temple grounds will be at their most peaceful. It seems appropriate to begin my final journey, as others embark on fresh starts and renewed hopes. My letters have been written and sealed, each one tucked away where it will be discovered at the proper time. The special kimono waits in my clothing chest, like a bridal gown, awaiting its moment of glory. Mother's comb has been polished until its golden butterflies seem ready to take flight. Kikuno has been granted permission to spend the New Year holiday with distant relatives, a kindness I arranged to ensure she would be safely away when my absence is discovered. Let her remember me as a mentor who cared about her future, rather than as a woman who chose despair over hope. The merchant sent another gift today, a set of jade hair ornaments that would complement my coloring perfectly. The accompanying note spoke of his eagerness to see me wearing them at our wedding ceremony, his words full of tender anticipation. I held the beautiful ornaments up to the light, admiring their craftsmanship while feeling nothing but hollow sadness for dreams that will never be fulfilled. Tomorrow I will return them with a letter of explanation that will shatter his hopes as gently as possible. You have offered me everything a woman could desire, I plan to write, yet my heart belongs so completely to another that I have nothing left to give. Seek a bride who can love you as you deserve to be loved, for such happiness is beyond my power to provide. January 2nd, 1679. The last evening. Tomorrow's dawn will see the completion of my earthly journey, yet tonight I feel strangely peaceful, as if a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The decision that once seemed impossible now feels as natural as breathing, as inevitable as the changing of seasons. I spent this final evening writing in this diary that has been my constant companion through these years of love and loss. Reading back through its pages, I see the progression of a woman discovering her capacity for feelings that transcended all boundaries of prudence and self-preservation. The girl who first arrived at Miraya, clutching her mother's comb and dreaming of eventual freedom, could never have imagined the path that would bring her to this moment. Yet I regret nothing, not the love that cost so many lives, not the choices that led to tragedy, not even the decision that awaits tomorrow's sunrise. In loving Gonpachi, I learned that there are forces in this world more powerful than duty, more compelling than survival, more precious than life itself. Our love may have been forbidden, may have ended in blood and sorrow, yet it possessed an authenticity that made every sacrifice worthwhile. I think of him now, waiting for me in whatever realm receives the faithful dead. Does he walk in gardens where seasons never change? Does he compose poetry for audiences of angels? Does he watch over me with the same gentle protectiveness he showed in life? Soon these questions will be answered. Soon the long separation will end. Soon I will be able to tell him face to face what these inadequate words have struggled to express, that he was loved completely, accepted fully, and treasured beyond the power of language to convey. The snow continues to fall outside my window, covering the world in pristine white that reminds me of the fresh start awaiting on the other side of tomorrow's choice. I am no longer afraid of what lies ahead, for love has already shown me that some things are worth any sacrifice. January 3rd, 1679 dawn at Toshoji Temple. The morning mist clings to the temple grounds like silk scarves draped over sleeping giants. I have arrived at Toshoji before the sun fully crests the horizon, dressed in my finest robes and carrying the precious tokens that connect me to both past and future. Gonpachi's grave is smaller than I had imagined, marked only by a simple wooden post, bearing his name in characters that speak of disgrace rather than honor. Yet, to my eyes, this humble resting place possesses more dignity than the elaborate monuments that mark the tombs of emperors. I kneel beside the grave and arrange my offerings with the care of a tea master preparing for the most important ceremony of her career. Incense to carry prayers skyward, fresh flowers to honor the beauty that persists even in death, rice wine to share one final cup with my beloved. "My darling Gonpachi," I whisper to the morning air, "I have come to complete our interrupted wedding ceremony. You offered your life as dowry for our love, and now I bring mine as proof that some vows transcend the boundaries of a single existence." Mother's comb catches the first rays of sunlight, its golden butterflies seeming to dance with anticipation of flight. I remove it carefully from my hair and place it beside his marker, a bridge between the world I am leaving and the one I am about to enter. The small tanto feels surprisingly light in my hands, its blade gleaming like captured starlight. There is no fear now, only the profound relief of a traveler finally sighting home after a long and difficult journey. "Wait for me, my love," I breathe as I position the blade against my throat. "I come to you, not in defeat, but in triumph, choosing love over survival, truth over pretense, eternity over the shallow promises of this floating world." The morning breeze carries the sound of temple bells beginning their daily call to prayer, and in their bronze voices I hear a wedding march announcing the union of two souls who refuse to let death diminish their devotion. This is not an ending but a beginning. This is not tragedy, but transformation. This is love made manifest in its most perfect form, sacrifice offered freely in service of something greater than individual existence. And now I go to him, carrying nothing but the memory of his gentle eyes and the promise that some loves are indeed stronger than death itself. Beyond time, the eternal dance. In the space between heartbeats, between the last breath and the first step into forever, I see him waiting as he promised. Gonpachi stands in a garden, where cherry blossoms bloom eternal beside plum trees heavy with fruit, where golden butterflies dance on winds that carry the scent of every flower that ever bloomed. His face shows no trace of the suffering that marked his final days, only the gentle love that first drew me to him across that crowded street so many lifetimes ago. When he extends his hand toward me, I feel the weight of earthly sorrow lifting like morning mist before the sun. "My beloved Komurasaki," he says, and his voice carries the music of streams flowing over stones, of wind through bamboo groves, of all the poetry we never had time to write together. "You have come home at last." I take his offered hand and feel the completion of a circle that began with stolen glances and forbidden letters, that continued through blood and separation, and that ends now in perfect union, beyond the reach of magistrates or social conventions. "I told you I would wait," he continues, leading me deeper into the garden where time has no meaning and love requires no justification. "Did you doubt that death could separate us when life could not?" Together we walk paths paved with memories made solid, past pools that reflect not our faces but our truest selves. The village girl who climbed cherry trees and the young samurai who dreamed of honor before circumstances forced impossible choices upon him. This is our wedding procession, attended by all the souls who ever loved purely in a world that traded hearts like currency. This is our bridal chamber, furnished with understanding rather than silk. This is our happily ever after, earned not through virtue, but through the courage to love completely despite all consequences. And in this realm beyond sorrow, I finally understand the meaning of Mother's words about finding beauty, even when clouds obscure the vision. Sometimes the greatest beauty lies not in what we can see, but in what we dare to believe exists beyond the boundaries of sight. The golden butterflies in my hair have come alive at last, spreading wings that catch light from a sun that never sets. Like us, they have broken free from their beautiful prison, to dance in skies that stretch beyond infinity. This is not the end of our story, but its true beginning. This is not tragedy, but triumph. This is love that refused to accept defeat, choosing instead to transform death itself into a doorway to forever. My dear listeners, thank you for allowing me to share this tale of love that transcended every boundary our world could place between two hearts. Your patience in hearing my story to its conclusion means more than you can know. If this tale has moved you in any way, please consider leaving a like on this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support allows us to continue bringing you these intimate glimpses into history's most fascinating lives. You'll find a QR code in the bottom right corner of your screen, or you can visit the link in our video description to make a donation. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps us maintain the quality and authenticity you've come to expect from Chrono Diaries. Be sure to explore our other offerings through the links in the description below. We have many more stories waiting to be discovered, tales of passion, betrayal, triumph and loss from across the centuries. Until we meet again in another time, another life, another story, thank you for walking this path with Komurasaki and Gonpachi. May you find in your own existence the kind of love worth any sacrifice. This has been Chrono Diaries. Keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep listening to the whispers of history.